Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 2nd of December. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this Thursday morning by Jonny McFarlane. Jonny, do you look happy?
Yeah, very happy, mate. I think obviously a very, very good result more than anything else. I think the performance we can drill into. But ultimately, that's 3 from 3 for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I think everyone should be pretty delighted by how it's going so far. Yes, there were issues last night, but you know what? Better Rangers team than this one have gone to Easter Road and struggled. You know, it's not an easy place to go. I think Jack Ross is pretty tactically astute. And I think the way both teams set up meant that it was always going to be something of a stalemate, and so it proved.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get our teeth stuck into it. Before we do that, just a reminder, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, a lot of you are now subscribing to the channel. Well, thank you very much for that. If you haven't already done so, just hit that subscribe button. And as Aldo McNaught says, hit the like button, share the video, and get more eyes on it. Let's Gio. Thanks very much for doing our work for us there Aldo. Let's look at the match then, Jonny. In terms of team-wise, Rangers made one change to the team that beat Livingston at the weekend. Stephen Davis coming in for Scott Arfield. Pretty much similar to what our teams we picked, although Yanis Hadji retained his place in place of Fashion Sakala. Any surprises in that team for you?
Yeah, ultimately, you know, anyone who's on our website would have seen that we both predicted the same team, which was the one that was picked by Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, apart from we thought Fashion Sakala would replace Yanis Hadji. And I was a bit surprised with that, because I thought, given I fancied Rangers to sit on the counter, sit back and hit on the counter, I thought Sakala's pace would be really, really important. But I understand what Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was thinking. He was thinking Hadji will give you that moment of magic, that spark, that creative quality. He can drop into the middle of the pitch and pick out a pass, maybe. Did it work? Well, that's another question, really, isn't it? Ultimately, it was an interesting game, wasn't it? It was a tactical battle.
Yeah, it wasn't the most vintage of games, that's for sure. Before we continue, William Quinn gets in touch, Jonny, and he's a big fan of your coffee mug that you've got there. It's an absolute belter.
Andy Gorham, yep.
That's a beauty. Okay, the game itself wasn't a classic, as I said. First half, very little to shout about, apart from an Alfredo Morelos sitter that Joe Rebo set him up in front of goal, but he managed to head wide. The game looked to be sort of petering out in effect. Rangers weren't really troubled in the main in the second half. Going forward, a lot of turnovers, a lot of sloppy possession, giving the ball away in the final third until Ryan Kent, who had a bit of a mixed bag of a performance. He was trying hard as he always does, but things just weren't coming off for him until he won the penalty. Ryan Porteous sticks out a leg. It's a stonewaller for me. I don't know. I don't know why people are complaining about it.
Only in Scottish football, mate. Only in Scottish football. I heard it described as soft last night on Sports Scene, and I was a bit taken aback by that. I thought it was a stonewaller as well. I mean, Ryan Porteous sticks out his leg, misses the ball completely, and takes the man. I mean, if that's not a penalty, what is? Sometimes these things just blow my mind. I think it was a definite penalty. Anyone who is completely non-biased, if you took that penalty around England, it would not be maybe a little bit. It's a bit soft. I mean, it's an absolute stonewaller. I understand from certain angles it maybe doesn't look like a stonewaller, but there is one angle from behind the Hibs goal that you can see everything absolutely clearly, and you can see the contact clearly. So, it's a bit of a strange one, that, but there you go.
Luckily, Rangers had Kemar Roof on the pitch by that point. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst made a couple of substitutions. Scott Arfield came on for Stephen Davis. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. Aldo mentions Arfield there. I think he certainly changed how Rangers were approaching the game, that's for sure. When he came on, they were more positive. But Kemar Roof stepped up, and cool as you like, Jonny, just slotted the ball into the back of the net. I mean, there would have been a bit of pressure on him, of course, being so late in the game. Rangers were toiling it a little, but to finish that the way he did shows you just what a quality player he is, a cool customer.
Quite an interesting penalty technique as well, Derek. The way he sort of did a stutter step. There's a few players that have done that over the years. But he's obviously making that move as part of his run to kind of make the keeper move.
Yeah.
And he looks up as he's doing it. I thought, I don't know, have you seen him do that before? That seemed very pronounced to me.
Similar, I think. Did he do it with St Mirren? Sort of springs to mind, I think.
I think he has. It just stood out to me like quite a good technique. And the keeper did move. He stayed still for as long as I think he could have, the big boy Macy in goal, but he did eventually move, and Roof just literally rolled the ball to the opposite corner. It was pretty impressive. Yeah, a great penalty. And listen, I think that's one of the big stories of the night. And now there's a sort of narrative forming in my head. I don't know what the viewers think, but Jermaine Defoe coming back, Kemar Roof being brought back in the minute he's ready from injury. I think there's a lot of pressure on Alfredo Morelos building here. Don't think he had a great game last night. The work was there. That's the first thing I would say, hands up. You know, I've been very critical of his lack of work rate, but he did work last night. But the quality in terms of the layoffs, in terms of the touches, I think it was poor. And then he missed a gilt-edged chance, didn't he? So he didn't have the best of nights, and Roof comes on and puts the ball in the back of the net, which is what he's very, very, very good at, obviously. And I wonder if maybe Morelos is finally about to see a spell on the sidelines, which I don't think any of us want, because most people who watch Rangers know how good Alfredo Morelos can be. But I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst would be well pleased to establish a baseline of performance. And if you're not performing to that level, you go out. And especially given the quality that he has in reserve. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Aldo says Sakala buries that header, the one that Morelos missed in the first half. I actually thought that myself. He's good in the air, isn't he, Sakala? He would have made sure that he hit the target at least. There's an interesting...
got to credit, Derek, on that. I've got to credit our tactical writer, Blair Newman, who wrote a piece about 3 months ago after Sakala had played 4 or 5 games, and he was talking about how the data and sort of deep dive scouting of Sakala showed that he was very, very good in the air, and this is something we should be looking at. So I was aware of this much before everyone else started to notice, just because I'd read this piece by Blair. So yeah, thank you, Blair.
Yeah, that's why we've got the top lads involved with the Rangers review, that's for sure. It's a big result, Johnny. Of course, people from elsewhere would have been looking at that as the minutes were ticking on, thinking Rangers could possibly be dropping points here. It changes the narrative somewhat, doesn't it? I mean, they're 7 points ahead with Celtic taking on Hearts this evening. It's a lot different than the prospect of that gap being cut to 2 points.
Yeah, it's huge. Absolutely huge. And that's the thing. I'm a big believer in the process being right. In life, not just in football. But in football, I think very important. And the performance is mostly very, very important, because if you perform well consistently, you will win consistently. Whereas if you perform inconsistently, your results will be inconsistent. But in this case, in this one case, the most important thing was just getting the result. Easter Road's a very difficult place to go. Sometimes you just got to grind it out in a place like that. If Rangers play like this week in, week out, I'll have a problem with it. But ultimately, all that matters when you're going to a really, really tough venue like that is to get there. No matter how you get there, you get there. And Rangers did that last night. And now Celtic going up against a very good Hearts team, the best Hearts team that we've seen, I think, in a decade. And they're under real pressure now, Derek. And that's going to be a real test of their title credentials. Can they, break down what will be a very, very solid Hearts team? It's a really tough game for them. And it's made all the more tough knowing that if they lose or if they draw, they're giving up quite a lot.
Yeah, certainly under pressure, that's for sure. I like this comment from Robert, Chris Boyd last night. It tickled me, Johnny, when he summed up the penalty, saying there are hard-boiled eggs and soft-boiled eggs, but it's still an egg at the end of the day. And it really did.
That's a good line. I don't think it's a soft-boiled egg. I think it's like absolutely in the middle of where penalties come. It's absolutely
Well,
It's just a clear penalty.
I was a bit surprised that Sky were making such a big deal about it, and it came to the point where Chris Boyd said, "Can we actually see the penalty now?" I think addressing the fact that they're talking so much about was it a penalty or was it not a penalty, it's as clear as day. And I mean, it's just I can't understand. But
does Ryan Porteous get the ball?
No,
he's nowhere near the ball. He's nowhere. What's the problem here, folks? He's nowhere near the ball, and he touches the man. That's it.
Yeah. End of debate. You move on. Stephen Davis came into the side last night, Johnny. For me, it didn't have the best of games. I mean, many of the players had a bit of an off night in terms of passing quality and what have you. I'd like to see Scott Arfield retain his place on Saturday. What say you? I just think he offers a bit more going forward.
Well, listen. Remind me of this question because I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here, but I'll try and bring it back round to that. What I'm really liking about Giovanni van Bronckhorst, okay, is he seems to be completely fluid in terms of his tactical outlook. He likes 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, the variation of whatever that is, but he is not above changing that mid-game, bringing new players into the system, and completely changing the dynamic with that. It's a stark and marked difference from Steven Gerrard, isn't it? Who this was the way they played, and everyone else had to adjust to the way they played because they played that way against everyone. Yeah, there was tiny little adjustments to it, but fundamentally, the core values of that team didn't ever change. I'm seeing a lot more fluidity with Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Hope everyone else has seen that too. You know, from last night in terms of the substitutions, much more tactically dynamic substitutions. You can see exactly, okay, this is what I'm doing. We've seen that with the whole Nathan Patterson thing coming on. Right, he's overloading defensive type players on that side, but also giving himself some pace to get forward in the counter. And you saw it last night with John Lundstrom coming on.
Yeah,
absolutely coming on to shut the game down. There's just a sort of level of pragmatism there that we haven't really seen, and certainly that's working really well for Rangers at the moment. And I think that will continue against Dundee, and I think we'll see a move back to a different kind of midfield. Perhaps once again, Glenn Kamara will anchor that midfield, and you'll have two attacking players in front, maybe a Hadji and an Aribo, or an Arfield and an Aribo, getting forward and really getting stuck into Dundee in an attacking sense. So yeah, it's really interesting to see, and a big change. And I think in terms of Dundee, I think it'll be much of the same, but with a more attacking midfield.
Yeah, that leads us nicely on because there's an area of the pitch I feel needs addressed, Johnny. I've got a piece out this morning on the website, and Fraser McKenzie brings it up with his point here. I feel that Hadji is not his best position out there. He doesn't have the pace to play out there. Giovanni van Bronckhorst says he likes wingers on the left. Fine, Ryan Ketton offers you that pace and can ghost by defenders. Hadji doesn't, unfortunately. He's more of a, I would like him more in a central role. Now, I've mentioned the likes of Sakala, Scott Wright, and Nathan Patterson as possible players that could occupy that position. Would that be an area of the pitch you'd like to see perhaps a little bit of a change?
Yes, Derek. Fundamentally, for certain games, although I can totally see Giovanni van Bronckhorst thinking, let me try and tell you what I think, and me in his head, right? Joe Aribo has been absolutely brilliant for Giovanni van Bronckhorst, right? In that number 10, it looks like, finally, Joe Aribo's position has been nailed down. Like, this is his position. This is his role. He could have had 4 or 5 goals in the 2 games previous to last night. With him playing so well, you need to get Hadji in the team, but you can't play him as number 10 because Aribo's just playing too well. So, listen, GVB is a Dutchman. He loves these kind of silky players, the kind of player that can create something off nothing, 2-footed, technically brilliant. Of course, GVB is going to like Yanis Hadji. So I think he's just thinking, I need to shoehorn him in somewhere, and the place is going to be right wing because we don't have a lot of depth in that position, and it means he's in the team and he can come inside and find passes. And, you know, he's not like a tortoise. He's not quick, but he can do it. He can do it. It's Scottish Premiership, So I understand that, but long term, there's no doubt in my mind, Derek, you nailed it. They're going to need to bring in a right winger of some sort. Yeah. You've got Sakala there who can play on the right, you can play on the left, play in the middle. That's fine. Scott Wright, I think Scott Wright's more like a baby Ryan Kent. I've said that at the start of the season. Repeat it again. Sorry, Scott Wright, but he's like Ryan Kent maybe 5 years ago. He needs to work on his game, and he's got the potential to get there and become a really important player. But I think he works better off the left. So I think there's just that space there for someone who could come in and offer something a little bit more chalk in the boots style, more Neil McCann-esque, but on the other side, obviously.
Yeah.
And give Rangers that kind of width.
Yeah, I totally agree. That I grew up at a time when you had the likes of, on that right-hand side, you had Andre Kanchelskis, which was just a speed freak down there, and someone of that ilk would be absolutely fantastic. And I mean, there may be movement in January, who knows? But I think going forward, that is an area of the pitch that Van Bronckhorst will look to address. Okay, that'll do us there, Johnny, unless you want to add anything else at all.
Well, I was just going to say, Andre Kanchelskis, I think, and this is a good one to throw out to the guys, I think is the fastest player I've ever seen play for Rangers. I remember at the League Cup final in 1998, 1999. Can't remember which year. I think it was 90. The 2-1 win over St Johnstone. I think it was 98. Anyway, and I remember seeing him just down that right wing and just running from one end of the pitch to the other, where the ball was on the other side, and just being blown away by how fast he was. He's incredibly quick. Well, Fashion Sakala's quite quick as well, but I thought Kanchelskis was... He was like a locomotive train, wasn't he? He was absolutely insane.
Yeah, he certainly was.
How much would he be worth today, eh?
Oh, you couldn't buy him, that's for sure.
No.
The question here from John Turner, I just want to address this. He says, where's Jack? Now, Van Bronckhorst mentioned this in his pre-match interview on Sky yesterday. He says he's fine, he's just not fit enough for a place on the bench at the moment. So I think we may see him on Saturday, but he's certainly, there's nothing in terms of injury-wise to be concerned about. Just Rangers have got a very competitive squad, Johnny, I think it is. I mean, we've seen John Lundstrom can't even get a game. He was brought on to sort of close the game out last night. Competition, that Van Bronckhorst mentioned this after the game as well, is key in every successful squad. And Ryan Jack is just one of a number of quality players in that squad fighting for a place.
Derek, I think the change from Steven Gerrard to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has meant that Rangers have now too many midfield players.
Yeah.
Because under Gerrard, they needed 3 of a certain type of midfielder, and now they need 2 or 1, depending on the game. So I think the squad's imbalanced in there, and I would imagine someone will go out on loan or be sold in January, because you've got, let's look at who you've got as a deep lying midfield player. You've got Ryan Jack, you've got Glenn Kamara, Stephen Davis, John Lundstrom, Juninho Bacuna. Who else is in there? Stephen Kelly.
Yeah, can't even get a look in.
There's probably other players that aren't immediately coming to mind.
Well, the boy Mark says, where's Nnamdi Offable? We've not seen him yet, of course, due to that heart issue in the summer. We'll try and get an update on him from the club soon. Yeah. But he's another one that can play in that defensive midfield role. Whether we see him in any time soon remains to be seen, but he's another one.
Yeah. So the depth there is really quite incredible. And imagine the competition for those places when it's a 1-2. So one is the sort of defensive position and 2 going forward. Then you're kind of asking Ryan Jack to play as an 8, which he can do, but he's getting older. So I think that's something that Ross Wilson will be looking at quite deeply when the time comes.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks, as ever, to everyone getting in touch on the social media accounts. Remember, if you've not done so already, just hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. And remember to join us as well at the Rangers Review website, rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Okay, we'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.